Yer, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and today we're going to be talking about how good the Cavaliers can be next year. After the improvements of Darius Garland and Jared Allen, along with the addition of Evan Mobley, who's been a much better player than we all expected in the first couple of games, and Larry Markkinen, as well as the researchers to Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio, and even them getting a guy like Karis LeVert. I think that this team could have as high of expectations as a lot of other teams could have, and if not, they could also be probably a third seed next year if they really wanted to. But let's get into it. So one thing about the previous years about the Cavs is that they have really struggled with injuries. I think the problem with the Cavs right now is that they have a lot of injury prone players. Larry Markkinen has not really stayed on the floor as well as you would want him to. Jarrett Allen suffered a really bad injury. Same with Evan Mobley, even though I think he got COVID one time. And I think that's the reason why he missed out on a lot of games. Darius Garland was also injured. And we also already know about what happened to Colin Sexton and Ricky Rubio. Two really bad situations with their ligaments being torn. You never want that to happen. And it really sucks that it happened to the same team twice in two different parts of the season where they could really had a really big momentum shift. Because before the Cavs were really super injured, they were the third seed. They were above the Bucks at one point. They were above the Nets. They were above the I think they were above the Celtics too, the Cavalier or the Philadelphia 76ers. I think the only teams that they were below was Miami and Chicago. So I think that they could really go back to a team where if they all play the same amount of games, they could really just be the third seed this year. However, I think that doesn't really cover a bunch of topics where, you know, Evan Mobley is going to improve, Jared Allen is going to improve, and I'm going to focus on this. Darius Garland can improve, and depending on what they do with Colin Sexton, they could even just have him back on the roster. So let's get into it. So one thing I really want to look out for is Evan Mobley's sophomore year. What he's shown in this year alone may have been one of the best, if not the best, defensive year from a rookie we've ever seen. It's really insane of how good he was on the defensive end just by being there. I heard in college that he wasn't really the most aware, well, not aware, but more so most active on that end because he didn't really have a drive. But I heard that because he's in a more comfortable position, he's probably better at doing that, which is very fine for him. He's a really good talent. He's built like Kevin Garnett. And it's really great to see a guy who could cover such lengths in a short amount of time. He's very quick, and his IQ on the defensive end is just super sharp. The only problem with Evan Mobley is that he sometimes gets lost, and he sometimes loses his footing. And I think that will really be fixed in the next couple of years. But most importantly, I think his offensive game is what needs to be really improved over the next couple of years. If he could really improve his game, rather being a shooter, which I think he's trying to go towards, I don't really mind it, but it will be really good for him to become a shooter just so he could fit better with Jared Allen and just being a better floor spacer. I think that if he could really reliably create a shot from the post area, maybe even from the 3 point line, just being a little bit more of a consistent shot creator, even as a big, I think that he could really be a bright shining star on this team. If not, I think that later down in the line, I think he can be the best player on this team. And that's no exaggeration. I think that his defensive anchoring is otherworldly, especially for this early in this career. I think that he can really just put this team on his back at sometimes on the defensive end. Later on in the years, he may even be like a Kevin Garnett type of player, and I think that could really shine for this team. But again, I think that this all really matters about how much his offensive game progresses. If he can't really progress that much on the offensive end, whether it be from, dribbling, not traveling, he has a traveling problem. He doesn't really like pivoting. I think that if he could fix those, which are very fundamental things, I think he could really just be the shining star on this team, just the superstar. But talking about the two most important players on this team right now, Jared Allen and Darius Garland, I think that their chemistry is as good as any can be, despite only playing for about a year and a half. And I think that their improvements this year were one of the bigger parts about their success going into this year. However, I think that if they could improve a little bit more, Darius Garland, for example, I think that if he's a little bit more tight in his passing, a little bit more accurate, a little bit more turnover cautious, I think that he can be one of the best play. Honestly, probably a top five playmaker in the league. Because the amount of assists that he got after Colin Sexton got injured was incredible. He was a 8.7 points or assists per game type of player, and I think if you can find better shots for a guy like Evan Mobley, a guy like Larry Markkinen, which he has been doing that. He's one of the best playmakers in the league already. He's probably a top 10 playmaker, just in general. But if he could do a little bit more on that end, especially with his off-ball play, I think that he could probably be one of the top 15 players. I think he's not even top, or I don't think he's far from the top 20 already. So I think going towards that, I think that he could really just be one of the best offensive creators in the game. I think he's already one of the best shooters in the game. Again, probably a top 15 shooter right now because of how difficult his shots are. He really doesn't get assisted a lot. I'm pretty sure his unassisted percentage is around like 12, 17-ish. Yeah, he's not really that much assisted. He's really just a shot creator. A lot of his twos, again, are just self-created. It's less than 30%. So, looking towards that, I think that we could just see that he's just that guy, you know. And if we're really just being honest, I think that he can just be one of the top 20 players in the game right now. So, Jared Allen is very similar to Evan Mobley too, because he does have a lot of defensive anchoring that you really like to see in a big man. I think that him and Jared Allen are just so mobile on the perimeter that even if you do get a switch on him, it may not just be an advantage. It may just be a disadvantage towards you because you have like this 7 foot guy who's able to keep up with you on the perimeter. And it's just going to be hard for you to get off of him. And especially because one of the both are, I'm pretty sure, top 10 in blocks. And I'm pretty sure that Mobley is one of the best blockers without fouling, which is really great. And if you really look at Jared Allen's game, I think that he does have a lot to improve on too. You know, just being a little bit better of a floor spacer. But along with Mobley, Mobley is already a really good passer for what we see. If they both improve their playmaking a little bit, it will go crazy on the court. Especially with a guy like Darius Garland who has a lot of off-ball movement. He really tries to get his teammates involved a lot, especially when a guy like Ricky Rubio or a guy like Colin Sexton is on the floor. They really try to make it so that they both can fit. And even going back to last year, they really did fit together well. But the problem was they both were too small, and they didn't really share the court that much. But going into this year, I think that if Jared Allen, you know, just keeps doing what he's doing, honestly, he was already an all-star with around 17 and 10 with around 1.3 blocks per game. It's really going to be great. And I just think that this Cavs team could just elevate to the third seed as well. Because, again, these are younger players. I think that if Evan Mobley takes a similar gap like Michael Porter Jr. did in his rookie to sophomore season, don't be surprised if this team is a contender, because that type of jump is not something that you really expect from a sophomore. But if he does, it just shows that he's probably going to be one of the brightest stars in this league. And this team will be very dangerous because of their defensive layout and all that. Not only that, but having 3 7-footers on the court at all times is kind of crazy. I don't think that many teams are just prepared for that. There's maybe 1 or 2 teams prepared for that, but again, if they just throw 7-foot bodies at you, I don't think that a lot of players could react well. But that's just me. This is the end of the video. It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and I hope you guys are having a great one.